He didn't just steal my money. He stole 7 years of my life, and I made sure the price he paid was many times what he owed me. Let me take you back to the beginning. 2008. The financial crisis torched every promise that had been made to my generation. I graduated at the top of my class in information technology. A year before, companies were lining up at my school's door. Scholarships, job offers, handshakes. It vanished overnight, every single one of them. So I spent the better part of my 20s crawling from one dead-end job to another. Work, save, get laid off, burn through savings just to survive while looking for the next shitty gig. Repeat. No money for certifications. No way to keep up with the tech. The market I prepared for moved on without me. By the time I hit 30, I was done being polite about it. I made a decision. Become a welder. Follow the trade my late father worked with his own hands for decades. And when I enrolled in a state-sponsored program that covered every cent of the training, I figured maybe luck was finally tilting my way. I was right. For a while, I was hired within days of finishing the course. Days after years of rejection. And the man who hired me, he seemed like the kind of boss you'd take a bullet for. But that's the thing about betrayal. It always wears a friendly face first. Victor ran a lean field welding crew. 6 guys always moving across the continent, sealing pipeline joints and structural steel in industrial sites from one country to the next. He took me on green, taught me everything, and didn't sugarcoat a single thing. And those first 6 years, I won't lie, they were brutal and they were beautiful. You don't know what real exhaustion is until you've stood on scaffolding in a German winter, wind whipping at 40 miles per hour, trying to keep your hands steady, enough to lay a perfect bead on a structural joint. The air always smelled like burning metal and stale coffee. We lived out of suitcases and slept in motels that smelled like industrial cleaner. Dawn to dusk, 7 days a week, months away from home. But the work was real. The men beside me were real. We were a brotherhood. Victor once took out a high-interest loan just to pay our wages on time because a client's payment was delayed. He went into debt rather than ask us to hang in there for 2 weeks. You don't forget a boss like that. So when things started shifting in year 7, when the core crew drifted back to their families and Victor set me up as foreman while he returned home, I didn't panic. I trusted the foundation we had built. Here is where the rot begins. Victor started sending me workers scraped from the bottom of the barrel. Drunks, addicts, men who showed up just to earn enough to disappear again. I was managing a crew of ghosts, people with nothing to lose and even less desire to do the job right. Wages started arriving late. Travel expenses, and I was putting over 2,000 miles on the road every month, stopped being reimbursed entirely. The accounting between gross and net pay started looking suspiciously creative. I'd look at my credit card statements, the diesel in France, the motels in Poland, and compare them to Victor's deposits. There was a gap, 200 here, 500 there. I'd confront him, and he'd give me that practiced, poor me look. My wife is tightening the leash on the business account, he'd say. The client is 60 days late on the invoice. He was weaponizing my loyalty against me, shaving cents off my life to bankroll his own. Then came the night that broke everything. 3 a.m. Phone rings. It's the client. One of my crew had been arrested for drunk and disorderly. No ID, only his work badge. They called the site manager. The site manager called me, in the middle of the night, to go pick up the animal. I was apparently responsible for. I ate that humiliation, every bite. When I finally sat down with Victor and told him I was done, he apologized. He looked me in the eye and apologized. And I believed him. That was my first real mistake. Want to know the second? Victor admitted his wife, who co-managed the business, was fighting him over spending. He asked me to stay on for just a few more months at minimum wage, just to help stabilize things. In return, he'd pay half of the back travel debt he owed me by the end of September. I needed the money. I had contractors hired to do work on my house. I said, yes, I know what you're thinking, but you have to understand. This was a man I had worked beside in freezing fields and blazing summers for nearly 7 years. You don't just switch that off overnight. September came. Victor vanished from town the weekend before the payment was due. Conveniently, suddenly, claiming he was chasing new contracts abroad. I saw it clearly then. The smile he gave me the last time we parted. Fake. Rehearsed. The kind of smile that is actually a door slamming in your face. 1 week before the payment deadline, I slipped on a work ramp. Have you ever heard the sound of a terminal ankle injury? It's not a snap. It's a symphony of things breaking at once. Tendon, bone, cartilage, like old wood giving way under too much weight. I remember the cold ground against my face. I remember trying to stand and my foot refusing to obey. I remember the strange silence that comes right before the real pain hits. It wasn't a sprain. I destroyed my ankle. Emergency surgery. 2 weeks in the hospital. 6 months unable to put a single pound of weight on that foot. 6 months. Think about what that means for a man who works with his body, who spent his whole life on construction sites, on scaffolding in open fields, suddenly trapped in a bed, with the ceiling as my only horizon, with the smell of antiseptic embedded in my skin, tubes in my arm, and a dull ache that painkillers can dim but never truly erase. And the payment? Nothing. Not a cent. Not the debt. Not the minimum wage he owed me. Not a single message. Total silence from Victor. As if I had evaporated along with my utility to him. I would lay there, staring at the white hospital ceiling, counting the cracks. It was the only thing I could do. Couldn't work, couldn't walk, could barely turn in bed without feeling the pain radiate through my entire body. And the phone stayed quiet. My mother panicked about the house bills and used my emergency savings to pay the contractors. I had authorized her to do exactly that for emergencies. She didn't know the well had run dry. She didn't know the man who should have deposited my salary was somewhere in Europe, pretending I didn't exist. When she told me, I didn't even have the strength to be angry. I just closed my eyes. But the final insult, the one that turned my suffering into fuel, was the sick leave. In my country, when a workplace accident sidelines an employee for more than a month, the government pays the benefit directly to the employer, who then forwards it to the worker. It was money meant to keep me alive while I recovered. Victor pocketed it. He stole even that. I was crippled, immobile, without a salary, without reserves, with debts coming due, and the bank calling every week. I had to cash out my long-term investments, years of sacrifice, the retirement I had built cent by cent, just to survive until the next month. My peace of mind, my future, liquidated. I could have called him, begged, maybe tried a new deal. It's what most people would do. But something happens to you when you're lying alone in a hospital room at 2 a.m., in pain, broke, without perspective. And you realize that the man you trusted for 7 years was, at that exact moment, sleeping soundly in a comfortable bed. The anger stops burning. It turns cold. It turns solid. I didn't want my money back anymore. I wanted him to feel the ground disappear under his feet. I wanted him to know exactly what it's like to lose everything at once. And I knew exactly how to make it happen. Here is what Victor never considered. A foreman lives on paperwork. Every contract, every purchase order, every supplier invoice, every discrepancy between what was billed and what was paid. Every corner cut, every labor law bent, twisted, or snapped in half. I had all of it. 7 years of documentation. My job was to ensure the sites were signed off correctly so the invoices could go out. That meant I recorded everything. Victor, for years, had been handing me the rope he was going to hang himself with. The moment I could drag my recovering foot out of bed, fueled by painkillers and pure spite, I made the appointments. Internal Revenue, Social Security, Labor Inspectorate. I sat in a cold office, and the woman from the Ministry of Labor went through my files. She stopped. She looked at the evidence of the stolen sick leave. Then she looked at me. Then she whispered to herself, my God, he broke half the labor laws in the country. I didn't say a word. I just nodded. Victor had a dream. Let me tell you about it. He lived in a cramped apartment in the capital with his wife and 2 kids. The kind of place where you literally turn sideways to pass someone in the hallway. But on the outskirts of the city, he owned a plot of land. And on that plot, brick by brick, year by year, he had been building his escape. A house so large that a single bedroom was bigger than his entire apartment. The last time we spoke about it, he was 6 months away from moving in. 6 months. He spent 7 years building his dream. I spent 7 years being the guardian, with no prior intent, of the documents that would be his destruction. And when the government finally moved, it didn't move slowly. It moved like a wrecking ball. His bank accounts were frozen, his business licenses suspended, his travel documents flagged and barred, every current employee dismissed with mandatory severance he couldn't afford. He filed for bankruptcy within months to pay the fines, 30 times the value he had stolen and withheld from me. He was forced to sell the house, the dream home, gone. He went back to that sardine can apartment where he will sit and watch his own life from inside a cage he built for himself. He called me after the government's gavel hit him in the face. I saw his name pop up on the screen. I watched it for a few seconds, took a deep breath. Now it was my turn. I answered. What came from the other side wasn't a man. It was a cornered animal. He screamed, called me a traitor, an ingrate, a snake, said I had destroyed his family, that his wife had left him, that his children were going to suffer because of me, that I was a heartless monster. His voice broke between one curse word and the next, sometimes with rage, sometimes with something that sounded dangerously close to crying. He went deep into every accusation he could manufacture, and I stayed silent, not because I had nothing to say, but because I wanted him to finish. I wanted him to spend every word, every argument, every plea he had saved up. Let him empty himself out, I thought, because when I speak, it's only going to be once. He brought up the 6 good years, the Brotherhood, the roads we traveled together. Did you forget all of that? He said. After everything I did for you. Then I remembered something. I remembered lying in a hospital room at 2 a.m. with my ankle reconstructed with screws, staring at the ceiling and waiting for a message that never came. I remembered cashing out my retirement to pay bank bills. I remembered the smell of antiseptic and the feeling of being discarded by a man I would have defended with my own body. So I spoke, slowly, calmly, without shouting. I said, "You looked me in the eye and lied. You left me rotting in a hospital without a cent, without a salary, without a single message. You took money from the government meant for a man who couldn't even walk, and you pocketed it. I didn't destroy your family. You destroyed your family yourself, brick by brick, long before I ever stepped near a public office." He tried to respond. I kept going. I said, "The Brotherhood you're invoking now? You buried it yourself on the day you decided my loyalty was cheap enough to be stolen." Silence on the other side. And I hung up and blocked every one of his numbers. I didn't slam the phone. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. Sometimes, the most devastating thing you can do is speak softly. From the bankruptcy proceedings, after the fines consumed everything, I managed to recover 1 month of sick leave. Just that. Everything else, gone. But here's the thing. I didn't need the money anymore. I needed the reckoning, and that I got. I'm not going to stand here and tell you I'm the hero of this story. I'm not sure there is one. I was a man who gave loyalty where it wasn't deserved, who trusted a handshake when he should have trusted the paperwork. And when I was finally broken, ankle destroyed, reserves depleted, investments liquidated, lying in a hospital bed, wondering how I was going to pay rent, I stopped waiting for justice to show up on its own. I went out and I made it appear. Victor lost a dream he spent 7 years building because he betrayed a man who spent 7 years building it alongside him. An eye for an eye. No, his entire face for what he did to my eye. The whole head for a tooth, for what he took from my table. This was 2 years ago. The ankle stayed. I have a metal plate and 3 screws that remind me of that winter every time the weather changes. But I walk, I work, I rebuilt the reserve I lost. Slowly, month by month, without any shortcuts. The investment I liquidated to survive, I'm rebuilding it from scratch. It's going to take time. Everything does. I learned to sign a contract before shaking a hand. I learned to photograph every invoice, every receipt, every deal closed in a hallway. I learned that loyalty without limits isn't a virtue, it's a vulnerability. And strangely, I don't carry the anger anymore. The anger was the fuel. It did the job it needed to do. But fuel is meant to be burned, not to be stored inside you forever. What remained was something quieter, firmer, the certainty that I got back up, that when the ground vanished, I didn't wait for someone to extend a hand. I went after what was mine, with screws in my ankle, painkillers in my blood, and 7 years of paperwork under my arm. That no one can take away. So this is what I want you to answer in the comments. Was this justice, or did I become just as implacable as the man who betrayed me? Because that line, I'm still not sure I didn't cross it.